California dreaming about you.
Hi, SimCoder here, and today we are going to write a simple HTTP request to follow up with our previous lesson, and that HTTP request will initiate the process of making a payout using PayPal. Okay, so we are using Firebase functions for that, and the first thing that we are going to do is to actually go inside our Firebase project, and we must upgrade our plan to the Blaze or Flame program plan. I'm going to choose plan because it is pay as you go, and because I'm not going to do a lot of requests, I probably won't have to pay anything. But for you guys, you have to take into account how big your app is and choose the plan accordingly. And the reason why we must do this, and I'm going to pull up the details right here. Let me see if it shows up. No, not that. See field plan details. Okay, is because, and I don't know if it says in here, and no, it doesn't. The reason why we need it is because in order to make requests, HTTP requests for functions outside of our domain, our URL that we have, that the Firebase team attributed to us, we must have the paid plan. Okay, so simply go ahead. It is really cheap if you are not going to have a lot of requests, so I wouldn't worry about that. Okay, after that's upgraded, it will change in here, so I chose Blaze. And okay, so that's it. We don't need anything else for now. So the next thing that we are going to do is to open up our function, our project right here, and I'm using VS Code for anything that's web related, because it is a really good code editor. So go ahead and install it if you want to. And I have our Uber functions folder open right here. So this is what you must have after our previous lesson. And if you don't have, if you haven't watched it, or something is missing from this, then please go ahead and watch it again. It is extremely important. Okay, so now we are going to open up the functions, and we are going to open up index.js. And in here, this is the file that contains all of the functions that your project has. So as you can, I'm going to remove the comments from here. Okay, and this is a function, for example, and this function works by, if in your URL that you have for your that's associated with your project, for in this case it is this HTTPS your app wherever, and in front of it you put /hello world, then this function will be triggered if you come in here, and there's some things in here that we'll talk about in a second. But if you put /hello world, then this function will be triggered. Okay, but for this function to be triggered, we must teach our project to, whenever it sees a function called hello world, to come in this folder, in this file, and search for a function called hello world. Okay, and you do that in the firebase.json file. Okay, I'm going just to remove these spaces right here to make it easier on the eye. And I'm going to place a comma, and now I'm going to say rewrite. Okay, and what this rewrite allows us to do, oops, I forgot these ones. Okay, what the rewrite allows us to do is to tell the project, whenever you see how do you say it? It's a page of the URL of the domain. So for example, SimCoder /forum. Whenever you see /forum, then go to this file and get everything from there. So in this case, we want to, whenever the project sees /hello world, to go into this function right here. And you do that by simply saying open up the curly brackets. Oops, let me just check right here. Yes, I need this one. Curly brackets, and we say source. I'm going to make this a tiny bit bigger for you guys, okay? Source, 2 points, hello world, function, process, hello world, better yet. Okay, so this means that whenever this appears in the URL, then we go into the function hello world. Okay, I'm just explaining to you this right now. I intend to do a series on Firebase functions, but it is just so that you guys know why I'm doing some things. Okay, so that's it. And whenever we called hello world, then this response will be sent to the server. Okay, so that's it. And now we are going to move on to the actual coding of the PayPal payout system. So for that, we will need to use, first of all, the app credentials. So if you don't have the app credentials, then come in here into the PayPal developer and create an app for you to use. So I already have one, UberClone. So yeah, I'm going to use this one, and you'll be assigned a client ID and a secret, which we'll have to associate with our project in order to complete the payouts. But yeah, I'll leave this up to you. Please do it now because we'll need it shortly. And yeah, so the next thing that we need is to, let me just check, not this one, not this one, I'm in the wrong page. Okay, so this. You'll have to go into the GitHub and search for PayPal Node SDK. After that, you'll be in this page, so PayPal REST SDK, wherever, go into samples, and in here you have a bunch of examples of how to implement certain things with Node.js, which is exactly what you need. And we are going to go inside the create single payout JSON, and in here you have the JSON that we must pass on to the PayPal system in order to complete a payout, which is this JSON right here. So we'll leave this open for a second, and just so that you guys know where everything is situated, so that there are no questions at all. And now we are going to jump into the code and actually start writing some code. So let's open up the VS Code. Okay, and now instead of hello world, I'm going to call it something else. So in this case, it will be payouts. And because this is called payouts, then we must come in here and say payouts. And I also want for the slash to be payouts, just to make things coherent, because otherwise it wouldn't make a lot of sense. I'm going to save this. Okay, you can delete this, and you can delete this. So now we'll need a bunch of variables, which I'm going to start calling right now. So the first of one is PayPal equals to require PayPal REST SDK, and make sure you have this installed in your project, and it should appear in here in these node modules, I believe, or yeah, it is in the node modules. So we installed this in the previous lesson. If you haven't installed, which is the npm I PayPal REST SDK, then go ahead and do it right now, because it is necessary for this part of the project. So now we have that. We'll need also the admin, which will be require Firebase admin. And now we simply initialize the app. So initialize app functions dot config dot firebase. Okay, and now we'll initialize the Firebase client ID and the secret that we have in our PayPal developer account. So let's say configure paypal.configure, open that, curly brackets, and now we'll define both the client ID and secret, but also one very important thing, which is the mode. So right now, because we are only in testing and we don't intend to make real transactions, we are going to use the sandbox. Because if you come in here, REST SDK, let's open this up. You see that you have the sandbox and the live one. The live is meant for you to, whenever you want to actually release the app or the project, you go live and you must change your client ID and the secret. In the sandbox, you can screw up all you want. It is not going to affect your bank account. So leave it at sandbox for now. And now we say comma client ID functions dot config dot paypal dot client ID, and we are going to copy and paste this again for the secrets, client secret, and copy again in here. Okay, so now you'll see something that we don't have the secrets in here, we don't have the ID in here. So how does this know what our ID is? And we must set the ID, but we do it inside the command prompt. So what we have to do is to come in here and say functions config set space PayPal dot client ID equals 2, and now we simply go into our PayPal app, grab the client ID, and simply copy and paste it here. Oops, there's something wrong. Oops, I forgot to get out of the functions folder, so cd 2 points and it will go back to the previous directory. Let's try that again. There's still an error. Functions config. Oops, I forgot the, yeah, that was a stupid mistake. I forgot to call Firebase before all of this. So you must say Firebase space, and only then you can call functions config set and all of that. So now let's go ahead and do it, and it should work. Give it a second. Okay, functions config updated. Now do the same thing for the secret ID. So erase this, and instead of client ID, simply come in here and say client secret. And after that, paste your secret in here. I'm not going to show you guys, so do you yourself, and then we'll move on. Okay, so that's done. Now we are going to going back into our index file, and now the app knows because we simply, you can say, installed our ID and secret into a place in our functions folder, so that the app knows exactly what our credentials are. Okay, so yeah, now as for this, everything is done. We can now move on to the payouts and actually start writing some interesting code. So what we need is to come in here, and we need to copy this JSON file, these JSON lines. So yeah, simply grab it, and we are going to, before that, do a couple of things. So const sender batch ID, and this will be the ID of the transaction. So we are going to generate a random number for that. So math random dot toString, and let's say 36 dot substring 9. Okay, that's good. Now we say const sync mode, and we are going to set it to true. And now we are going to actually create the JSON. So const payrec equals to JSON dot stringify, and we open up the parentheses, curly brackets. Okay. And now inside here we simply paste wherever we copied from the PayPal GitHub. So these things right here, and I'm on the create single payout JSON, don't forget. Okay, now go back, and we must change some things, which is to remove the quotes from the parameters. So items, remove this, remove it. Okay. Okay, so this is it. So now I'm going to use an email that I have set up in here. So because we are using the sandbox, we are able to create accounts to use related to this. So I have a bunch of accounts right here. I'm going to use, for example, the info at SimCoder, and you must use these accounts. You must come in here, create account, and do it. You can't use real accounts. So in here, because we have the JSON, we can simply come in here and say info at simcoder.com. In my case, in your case, you must create your accounts. And let's say it costs, we are going to pay out 90 cents. Let's round this up to 10, just make it a bit better. So yeah, it will say thank you, it will say you have a payment. Okay. So now the JSON is created, and we are able now to create the payout. And this is everything that you need to create the payout. You don't need much else. But now we must actually go ahead and make the request to send this to the PayPal system. So, and before that, I'm putting this here, and the reason is because we don't have the request. We aren't making HTTP requests at the moment, and this is just for us to test. Obviously, I'm not sure if in the next lesson, but sometime in the future, we'll change this for something that will send over the HTTP request and the value as well. And maybe the value will be calculated in this function right here. So yeah, stay tuned for that. So now we must create the payout. I'm sorry. So PayPal dot payout.create, and now we say payrec, and this payrec, I'm going to make this a tiny bit bigger and collapse this. This payrec is the JSON that we must pass. So payrec, comma, sync mode, comma, error, this is in parentheses, don't forget, payout, and this is what it will return. And then you simply say equal and a bigger than sign, and open up the curly brackets. Make sure it looks somewhat like this. Okay, and now we'll simply catch the error if there are some, but if there aren't any errors, then we'll simply return a status of, let's say, 200, and because the return status is 200, we know that whenever it returns 200, for example, or 1 or 2 or whatever you want, then the payout is successful. If not, we'll return some other value, and we know that if that's returned, then we know that the payout was not successful. So if error, then we can say console.warn error.response, and we'll return the status as I've said. So res.status 500, and we'll simply end it all. So end and throw error. Okay, but if it doesn't give an error, then we can simply say else console.info payouts created, and we can pass also the payout, so console info again, and say payouts, and then we simply end with a status of 200, as I was telling you about. I must check the codes, because I don't know if 200 is the best code to use in here, but well, it is good enough. We know what it means, so yeah, great. Okay, and that's it. So after we create the JSON that we need, we simply pass it along to this function right here, and this is what takes care of everything. And because it is associated with this PayPal, which is the dependency that we have, not dependency, but the library that we installed in the previous lesson, then it will create it for us, and we don't need to do anything else. Okay, so let me just check the Firebase JSON. Okay, make sure you have this right here. Okay, looks good. So yeah, let's just deploy and see if we are able to trigger this HTTP request. So come in here, Firebase deploy. Okay, so I launched the app and there is an error, but it is actually good, so that I can show you guys how to handle errors. So let's go into functions, and you can see the URL of the payout function, which is this one right here. So let's just copy and paste it inside here. Payout, okay. And the URL is different in this case, because we are specifically going to this function. But yeah, so you'll see an error that pops up. Error could not handle the request, and that means that something went wrong, obviously. So in order to fix this, let's go into functions, logs, and you'll see that there are a bunch of things in here. But yeah, forget these below. Let's just focus on these things right here, and you'll see that the payout is created and everything is done, but there is an error here. And if you open that up, you see that res is not defined is the error. Okay, so that's interesting in and of itself. So let's go into our thing, and the res that it is talking about, if you come in here, is on the line 42 of the index file. Okay, so let's go in here, and it is these variables right here. So the problem is because, well, I normally call res to response and rec to request to make things shorter, and I made that mistake. So in here it is not res, it is response. So let's just change this, and now it should be fine. So let's again deploy our project, and let's get back to it once it has finished uploading. Okay, so the app finished, the project finished uploading. Let's go back into our project and just reload the payouts. Let's see if now it goes through nice and easy. And okay, nothing showed up, so it should be fine. Let's go into our log to see if everything, if the 200 code shows up. So in here it is started and finished with status code 200. Okay, so that's exactly what we needed. we can actually see everything in here. Everything went over with success. And now just to make sure that the payout was successful, you can go into send into our PayPal developer account, into notifications in the sandbox, and it should show up in here. And here it is. So it was sent from my email to this email, info@SimCoder. And if you open that up, you'll see that it is $10, so exactly what we needed. Okay, so that's it. I mean, for this lesson it is done. We have a payout system working. Now, obviously, with this code you can only send it to info@SimCoder and only with a value of 10, but we'll learn how we can specify this to our needs. And yeah, so, but everything is working as it should, so that's good. And remember, the user does not have access to this code, which makes it a lot safer. So yeah, that's it. Thank you all very much for watching. If you are new here, then do please subscribe, leave a like, and donate if you can, because I intend to do a lot more videos on Firebase functions, because I think it is extremely interesting. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I hope to see you again tomorrow, and ciao!